Hey, this is Alex Rome, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make professional sounding drum loops. Now this is something you guys have requested a lot. You've requested this a lot, and I never felt like doing it. So today I feel like doing that, and I think it's something really cool you could learn a lot from. So let's just get right to it and cut the chitter chatter. But I would like to say, please give me a thumbs up on this video. I'm trying to hit 400 likes. I hit 300 likes when I asked for it on one of my last videos. So 400 likes would be incredible. So please do that, and I would really appreciate that. So let's get right to it. So to make a professional sounding drum loop, you need professional sounding drums. The drums within Logic I would try to steer away from because they're just not those 2017 massive drums that some people are coming out with on the internet. So a place to find professional sounding drums, I would say the easiest bet is splice.com. If you don't want to pay for a Splice account, just search in Google for free EDM samples or free drum samples, and you'll find hundreds of thousands for free. I have so many free packs, and they're not pirated. They actually are given away for free. You might have to trade your email address to get onto an emailing list for some of them, but that is how to acquire some really nice customized drum samples. But in the meantime, let's just stick with what I use, Splice, and I have my Splice samples here that I like. I like this kick here. So in order to start to get a kick going, you have to drag it into Logic here. And if you're using a Midi kick, some kind of Midi or a sampled kick, you would open a new software instrument track. But in the meantime, I'm going to stick to using an audio file, and I'm going to put the tempo at 140 BPMs. So what I like to do is I like to just play the metronome and kind of like hum a rhythm in my head. So I'm thinking I could go, it's always easiest when you're not playing the keys like in real time. It's always easiest to put the absolute value on snap to grid. Let's go up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some side hits right here. So before I do that though, let's play our drum loop. So it's very, very basic, but we want this to sound very like big and nice and something you would hear in your favorite trap songs or favorite future bass songs. So I have that hit. Let's turn these volumes down, and I will certainly fix that so you don't gotta worry about compensating for your volume after I turn these down. And when I have these extra hits, I like to kind of make them a little bit quieter in volume. If you're using MIDI notes, you would change the velocities. Let's throw in an extra hit here, and then maybe an extra one right at the end there just to close the loop. So we get something like that. Nice. Now what I like to do is I like to group these up. And I may have to keep this one out of the track stack because I'm going to put a little bit of overdrive on my kick. And this when you add distortion and stuff to kicks, what it does is it kind of makes the kick your own. So instead of this being one of the most popular kicks on Splice, it now sounds like a different kick. Isn't that cool? So now our first line of kicks is a different sound than our lighter kick, and it basically just sounds like a little more powerful than a lighter kick. But now let's listen to this kick. Sounds like that without the overdrive. Sounds really basic, not that fun. And now it's completely different. It doesn't sound like a kick that I found on Splice anymore. Bang, just like that. And it was only one plugin, so I can add a bunch of plugins to really make this kick sound different, and I don't even have to layer it a million times and lose quality of the kick by adding too many stupid layers. So let's go and add a snare. Snares, just like kicks, are all over the internet. Just search in Google free snare samples. You'll find them, I promise you. I'm going to open up a sampler because I had a snare sample in Splice, and what I do is I like to slide them into my EXS24 sampler. So when I have Splice open, or you can have a folder open, you would take your sample and you would drag it into the sampler, and then you would save the sample. And what'll happen is you can pick your sample, your newly saved sample from the list. Come into here. Let's make the volume quieter. And now it's playable on your Midi keyboard. And so I like using sampled snares because I can have control of the key that I'm in. I like the snare, but I don't like the reverb that's with it. I like being in full control of the reverb. So when samples like this one come with reverb, I try to chop it out. So like that, and then maybe we can compress it and get a nicer sound. Like that, and then we can add our reverb. So when you're making a drum loop, you want to keep track of your reverbs because you want every reverb to be the same that you add to this loop. It's super important, trust me. Ready? So I'm going to come down here and I'll show you how to do it. You come down to Space Designer and we're going to add reverb to our snare. We're not going to add reverb to our kick because you don't add reverb to kicks unless you're making a special sounding kick with reverb on it. But for this, I'm going to pick a space. Let's go to Medium Halls and just take Medium Hall. See what it sounds like. I don't know if I like that. I actually like that narrow hall. It's got a little bit of a ring to it that I don't like, but it'll work for now. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep track of that preset in my mind. I'm going to remember Space Designer, Narrow Hall. It's going to go in all of my elements now, because none of my elements can sound like they're in a different room, because it just sounds weird. So let's recap. 2 layers of kicks. One of them is going to be that dominant kick. Then I always have those side hits on the kick, like these smaller ones, because it just makes you sound like you know what you're doing. And then on my snare, I compressed the snare first, and then I added my own reverb to it. And make sure your snare's in key. So when I add a bass line, that's definitely gonna matter. So let's keep adding elements to this drum loop. Let's add hi-hats now. Now, when you have hi-hats, you have to make your hi-hats as big as possible, because hi-hats are really, really small. And they just don't have a lot of stuff. They're not produced with enough artifacts to really be big enough by themselves. So we have to throw effects onto our hi-hats to kind of bring them out. So my hi-hat again is from Splice, and what I did is I dragged it into a sampler. I would say if you're going to be writing hi-hats, make sure you can write them in Midi, because any other way is just kind of annoying. So I'm going to go down to hi-hat here. Nice, so we have our hi-hat in now. And what we're going to have to do with that is a couple things. I like to make my hi-hats as pushed as possible. So I'll add a distortion. Normally I would add saturation, but I'm going to use this free plugin here called Camel Crusher. I would definitely use Fab Filter Saturn or something along those lines. Something along the saturation lines, because it makes your hi-hats sound like they're being pushed. But distortion will work for now. So there's a little bit of an artifact that was brought out with this, so I'm going to turn it down. Maybe we could just get away with distortion. I'm going to spread these just a little bit. And again, let's add that narrow hall in the medium spaces. Halls, narrow hall. It adds like a nice noise in the atmosphere going on. Totally cool. So, next thing I'm going to do is we need to beef up this snare. Whoops, this snare. And then what we could do is we can add both of these layers to a track stack. So let's go here, create track stack. And on this layer, I'm going to add a clap. And what this will do is it'll allow some of those high frequencies to get in. Those high frequencies that are going to scream for me. And you can just use a tiny clap. You don't need anything really big, because all we need out of this is its high frequencies, kind of that white noise. And so now that we have these stacked, we can turn these two plugins off and we can mix them together. I want the dominant sample to be the snare, and this clap to be just so lightly on top. And I'm going to calm down here. And now I'm going to compress them together because it's extremely important. Turn this clap down a little. And so now it's kind of mixed together. We can go ahead and add our narrow space again. Let's go narrow hall. That's a big snare. Nice. Okay, so now we can start adding those extra hits. And I love the extra hits, but they are the hardest ones to get right, because bad sounding extra hits sound really bad. But yeah, there's ways around sounding bad when you do this stuff. Right now I'm looking for a snare, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do with this. Let's take this, and basically I'm going to use this and I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to add this in front of every other snare. Whoops, let's get off of 164. I was on that when I was making the hats. Alright, so I want this to be a little more like discreet. I don't like how it just kind of comes in with like a long entrance. I want like a short entrance. See if I can overlap them a little. Oh, this one's already overlapped. That's weird. Maybe I can stop it. And then this one, we can cut that. Like that. And now on every other snare, we have to make this a different hit. I've submitted to a label one time, and they told me every other. They told me, no, they didn't say every other snare. They said all the drums sound kind of static. And they had mentioned that I should try to make more significant every other snare than the snare before. So we're going to dress that snare up. Let's go ahead and add another clap. I'm going to use this one. It's a popular clap, but we can make it sound like our own. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off all those artifacts on the end because I want to make the reverb my own. And with this, we can go to Space Designer, come into halls, and then narrow hall here. And we can add something like that because it's just going to be there to add some noise that you didn't hear on the snare before. Yeah, like that. Yeah, so it's just like such a subtle sound, but it makes the difference, you know. So let's go in and try to add some 808 snares. And what I like to do with the 808 snares is I like to throw them in random spots to kind of just put those random hits in there, you know. So the first thing I like to do with these is get the stutters down, and then I'll work on the other hits, you know, later. So let's go and get the stutters down. Alright, I'm trying to decide where I want to put this. And maybe we can bring these up over here. Yeah, so we have the stutter for the hi-hats right here, and then we could probably get the snare to complement that right here. So let's get one more at a lighter velocity. Oh, I don't know if I could hit that there. Oh yeah, I can. So let's get this lower velocity. And it'll just be there to kind of add the transient. And then maybe, you know, if there's room for it, I don't know if there is right now. I kind of hear room for it in my head, but I don't know 100% until I add it. Let's add one of these. I heard it in my head kind of on one of these kicks. I'm kind of like looking here now. This can be really quiet. And again, this is just to add noise, because we already have the structure of the drum loop doing what we want it to do. It's a powerful drum loop. I want to come here because we're getting a little muddy on the transient, so I think it'll be a good idea to kind of move the transient a little bit just by adding a little fade in like that, because I want the kicks transient to punch through, and this one was kind of interfering with that. Let's see if we can add a nice bass line now. Now, the drum loop's done, but you never know if it's going to work until you go ahead and add in your an idea of your sounds. So let's get a nice sub bass in there. There you go, guys. If you're able to take something of value from this lesson, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It'll really help me out, and I would really appreciate that. And stay tuned for more awesome stuff.